The small town was quiet that night. Houses slept under the soft blanket of darkness, and only a few street lamps gave a pale glow on the empty road. The world seemed still, peaceful, almost too peaceful. In one of the houses, a little pug snored gently in his warm bed. His round body rose and fell, and his small nose made funny sounds. To him, the night was safe like every other night, but the sky had a secret. Far above, beyond the reach of human eyes, something was moving. A dark shape slipped across the stars. It did not belong to the earth. It came faster, faster, until the sky cracked open with a flash of white fire. The sound was not thunder, but a sharp scream of metal tearing through the air. The pug's ears twitched. His eyes opened wide. He lifted his head. Something had changed. Outside, in the far woods, a crash echoed like a giant had fallen. Birds flew up in panic, their wings slicing the night air. Then silence returned, but not the safe silence from before. This silence felt heavy, like someone was holding their breath. The pug jumped from his bed and padded to the door. He scratched at the wood with his little paws. Inside the house, the humans still slept, but the pug could feel something strange calling him. He whined softly, then growled. In the forest, smoke rose from a broken shape hidden among the trees. A small figure stumbled out, coughing, shaking. It was a girl, but not a normal girl. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, almost silver. Her eyes were too large, too bright, shining like twin moons. She held her arm, injured, and her clothes were torn from the fall. She looked around in fear. Behind her, in the distance, came another sound. A cold metallic thump. Then another. Heavy footsteps. They were slow, steady, and full of threat. The girl froze. She whispered something in a language no human could understand. Her breath was quick. Her time was short. She ran. Branches cut her skin as she pushed through the trees. Her silver eyes scanned the shadows, searching for safety. The footsteps followed, closer and closer. Strange red lights moved in the darkness, scanning, hunting. The girl reached the edge of the small town. Houses stood quietly, unaware of what had fallen from the sky. She crouched behind a fence, trembling. That's when she saw him, the pug. The little dog stood in the yard, his black eyes shining as he sniffed the air. His head tilted. Instead of barking, he wagged his tail slowly. The girl pressed her finger to her lips. "Quiet," she whispered in broken English. The pug tilted his head again as if he understood. A beam of light swept across the street. Not from a car, but from something searching. The girl ducked low. Her heart pounded. The pug gave a soft growl, sensing the danger. The sound of the footsteps grew louder. Metal scraping, gears turning. A shadow moved at the edge of the street, tall and sharp, not human. The girl gasped and pressed herself against the fence. The pug pressed close to her, his little body warm. For the first time that night, she did not feel completely alone. But the danger was real. The hunter was close. The alien girl looked at the pug. "Hide! Help me!" she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. The pug wagged his tail again, then turned and trotted toward the backyard shed. He stopped at the door and looked back at her as if telling her to follow. She crawled after him, careful not to make a sound. The beam of red light moved closer, scanning the fence. She slipped inside the shed just as the shadow passed. Inside, the shed smelled of wood and old paint. The pug curled beside her feet. The girl sat on the floor, clutching her arm, trying not to cry. Her glowing eyes dimmed a little as she whispered, "Thank you." Outside, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, slowly, the sound of breathing, but not human breathing. It was mechanical, deep, unnatural. The girl held her breath. Her heart beat fast, so loud she was afraid it would give her away. The pug growled low in his throat, ready to defend her. The beam of red light swept across the window of the shed. Dust lit up in the glow. The girl closed her eyes. She knew they were close. Too close. For a moment, everything froze. Then, with a slow and heavy creak, the shed door shook. Something was outside, touching it. The sound of metal fingers scraped against the wood. The girl covered her mouth, trying to stay silent. The pug pressed close to her, ears flat, body trembling but ready. The night was no longer safe. Something had arrived, and it was hunting. The shed was small, filled with shadows. Old tools hung on the walls, and the smell of dust and oil filled the air. The alien girl sat on the floor, holding her injured arm, while the little pug stayed close, watching her with round, shining eyes. Outside, the strange footsteps moved slowly away like a predator searching for its prey. The girl let out a shaky breath. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark, but weaker now. She whispered something in her own language, soft and broken, before she tried English again. "Safe here?" The pug tilted his head, then licked her hand. She blinked, surprised. In her world, animals were not like this. They were wild, untamed. But this small creature, this dog, was different. He seemed to understand her fear. He seemed to understand her. The girl pressed her back against the wooden wall. She listened, silence, but not complete silence. The night carried hidden sounds, crackling electricity in the distance, faint metal growls, the echo of machines hunting. She shivered. The pug gave a soft bark, quiet but sharp, as if telling her, "Stay alert." The girl leaned closer to him. "You help me?" "Yes," she whispered. Her words were slow, broken but filled with hope. The pug wagged his tail. She almost smiled, but her fear returned quickly. She remembered the red lights in the forest, the cold footsteps. They were not gone. They were never gone. They always found her, no matter how far she ran. For a moment, her mind went back to her home. She saw green skies, silver rivers, and her people living in peace. She remembered her mother's voice, gentle and warm. But then the hunters came, breaking everything, burning everything. She was the only one left to run. And now, even here, on this quiet world, they had followed her. She touched her wound and winced. A small cut, but deep enough to bleed. The pug sniffed her arm, then gave a little whine. His small black nose touched her skin, and he licked the wound gently. She gasped, then laughed softly, even in her fear. "Strange." "Little warrior," she whispered. The dog barked once, proud. But outside, that one bark was a danger. The footsteps returned, heavy, closer. The shed door shook again. The girl froze. Her heart raced. The pug growled low in his throat, standing in front of her. His tiny body looked small against the large shadow moving outside, but his spirit was fearless. The door rattled. A sharp hiss of air. Then silence again. The girl held her breath, praying the hunters would pass. Seconds felt like hours. She pressed her glowing eyes shut, whispering to herself, "Not now. Not here." Then suddenly the footsteps began to fade. Slow, steady, moving away this time. She let out her breath and leaned her head against the wall. She felt the pug crawl into her lap. His warmth gave her comfort. For the first time since she landed, she felt less alone. The girl looked into the pug's dark eyes. She spoke slowly. "My name, Lyra." Her voice shook, but she wanted him to know. "I hide from them." The pug tilted his head, listening as if he understood. Lyra pointed to the sky through the small broken window. From there, not safe. Never safe. Her eyes watered, but she held back her tears. She was not weak. She could not be weak. The pug gave a small bark again. His eyes were sharp, like he was telling her, "I will protect you." She stroked his head gently. "You brave." Small but brave. The night moved on. Crickets sang, the air cooled, but danger never left. Lyra stayed awake, her ears alert for every sound. The pug dozed lightly, but every time the wind moved, he opened his eyes. They were both on edge. Then near midnight, the sound returned. Not footsteps this time, but voices. Strange, mechanical voices, speaking in a language no human would understand. The shed walls vibrated with the sound. Lyra's heart stopped. She recognized the language. The hunters were calling to each other. They were closer than before. She crawled to the window and peeked out. Red lights moved slowly across the yard. Tall shadows walked between the trees. They were searching carefully now. The pug followed her, pressing his nose against the window. He growled softly. Lyra whispered, "Quiet, warrior." Quiet. One of the shadows stopped. Its head turned toward the shed. A red beam swept across the wall. Lyra ducked, pulling the pug close. Her breath came fast. The voice outside spoke again, sharp and cold. Then footsteps crunched closer on the grass. The shed door trembled as a heavy hand touched it. Lyra closed her eyes, her heart screaming in her chest. She whispered one last word. "Hide." The pug stood in front of her, growling, ready to fight if the door opened. The night had become a cage. The hunters were here, and this time there was no place left to run. The night grew darker, heavy like a blanket pressing down on the town. The shed was still, but the air inside felt thin, hard to breathe. Lyra sat against the wooden wall, her silver eyes dim but alert. The pug stayed in front of her, growling low, his tiny body shaking but his spirit strong. Outside, the hunters moved like shadows made of iron. Their footsteps crunched the grass with unnatural weight. Their voices were cold, robotic, whispering to each other in harsh tones. The red beams of their searchlights swept across the yard, painting the shed walls in glowing lines. Lyra pressed her hand to the pug's head. "Quiet, strong," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic was the enemy. Fear gave the hunters strength. She knew this. The shed door rattled again, harder this time. Dust fell from the roof. The pug barked once, sharp and brave. The sound cut through the night like a knife. The footsteps stopped. Silence followed, a silence so deep it made her ears ring. Lyra held the pug close, her heart beating fast. She knew what silence meant. It meant the hunters were listening. They had heard. A long hiss of air escaped from outside, the sound of their machines preparing. Then came the mechanical growl, low and threatening. Lyra whispered, They smell fear. They know. Her people had learned this long ago. The hunters were not only machines. They were something more. They could sense weakness, track emotions, and follow the heat of terror itself. That was why hiding never worked for long. They always came back. They always found you. The pug bared his teeth, ready to fight. Lyra almost laughed at his bravery, even in this moment. "Little warrior," she whispered, "you are not afraid." She wished she could be like him. Suddenly the shed's window glowed red as a light swept over it. A sharp metal hand punched through the glass. Shards scattered across the floor. Lyra cried out and pulled the pug back. The hand groped blindly inside, metal fingers scraping against the wooden walls. The sound made her skin crawl. The pug barked again, louder this time, and bit the hand. Sparks flew as his teeth struck the cold metal. The hunter pulled back with a screeching sound, its voice rising like static in the night. Lyra stood, clutching the pug. She knew the shed would not last. She had to move. She looked at the small window in the back, half broken and covered in dust. It was her only chance. She crawled toward it quickly, pushing the pug through first. He landed in the grass and barked again, urging her to follow. She climbed out, her injured arm slowing her, but the sound of the door crashing behind her gave her strength. She fell into the yard just as the shed exploded with red light. The hunters were inside now. Lyra grabbed the pug and ran. Her bare feet slapped against the cold earth as she sprinted toward the trees. The pug's nails scratched the ground as he kept pace. Behind them, red beams cut through the dark, chasing, hunting. She could hear the machines calling to each other. Their voices were sharp, rising higher. They had found her trail. Branches whipped her face as she ran into the forest. Her breath came fast, shallow. The pug barked, but she hushed him quickly. "No. Quiet, warrior, quiet," but it was too late. A red beam swept across the trees, catching her shadow. The hunters closed in. She tripped on a root and fell hard, the pug tumbling beside her. Pain shot through her arm. She bit her lip, holding back a scream. The hunter's footsteps grew louder. Then, in her panic, something inside her stirred. Her palms began to glow faintly, like small flames of silver light. She looked at her hands in shock. She had not used this power since her world fell. She had been afraid it would draw them faster. But now the power came on its own, rising like fire from deep inside her. The pug barked once, startled, but then wagged his tail as if he knew it was good. The light spread, pushing back the shadows for a moment. The hunters stopped. Their red beams flickered. They hissed in their strange language, confused. Lyra stood slowly, her silver eyes glowing brighter now. She held out her hands, trembling but strong. No fear," she whispered. The light burst brighter, filling the forest with a silver glow. The pug stood beside her, barking loudly, his voice echoing with her power. For a moment, the hunters stepped back. Their metal bodies hissed, sparks flying as they faced the strange force. But then, with a deep growl, one of them raised a weapon. A red bolt shot across the trees, striking near her feet. The ground exploded, dirt flying. Lyra gasped. The pug yelped and jumped back. The hunters advanced again. The light inside her flickered, weaker now. She had used too much too fast. She grabbed the pug and ran again, deeper into the forest, her power fading. Behind her, the hunters followed, their red lights glowing like eyes in the dark. The night was alive with fear, and Lyra knew one thing for certain. The hunters would not stop. Not tonight, not until they had her. The forest was alive with fear. The trees shook with the sound of heavy footsteps and the air burned with the red light of the hunters. Lyra stumbled forward, her bare feet cutting against stones and roots. The pug ran beside her, his short legs working fast, his breath quick but strong. Behind them, the hunters moved like shadows made of fire and metal. Their voices echoed through the trees, sharp and mechanical, calling to each other in that cold, broken language. The sound made Lyra's heart pound. She knew their words. She knew what they were saying. Do not let her escape, trap her. And her. Her hand still glowed faintly from the power she had released, but it was weak now, like a candle in the storm. The hunters had seen it. They had felt it. Now they were faster, hungrier. The pug barked once, warning her. She turned her head and saw one of the hunters leap across the trees, moving too fast for its size. Its red eyes locked on her. Lyra grabbed the pug and rolled to the ground just as a blast of red fire struck the tree above. The wood exploded into splinters. She covered the dog with her body, shielding him from the rain of sharp fragments. Her skin burned, but she did not cry out. She stood again and ran, clutching the pug. Not stop. Not stop, she whispered through her shaking breath. The forest grew darker as clouds covered the moon. Branches whipped her face. The smell of smoke from their weapons filled the air. The night was no longer a place of safety. It had become a cage of fear. She pushed forward until she saw the silver line of water ahead. A river cut through the forest, wide and fast, its surface shining with moonlight. Relief and fear struck her together. The river could hide her, but it could also trap her. The pug barked again, louder now. His little paw pointed at the water as if urging her to go. But the hunters were close. Too close. Red beams sliced the trees, moving toward her. Their voices grew louder. Corner her. No escape. Lyra's breath shook. She looked at the river. She could not swim far. Not with her wound. Not with the pug in her arms. But if she stayed here, she would be caught. The hunters stepped out of the trees. 3 of them now, tall and sharp. Their red lights glowing like blood in the night. Their armor hissed with steam. Weapons aimed at her. Lyra stepped back, her feet in the cold water. She clutched the pug close. His eyes were wide, but he did not look away. He was ready. Her hands began to glow again, weak but real. Silver sparks flickered between her fingers. She raised them high, her eyes burning with courage. No, not take me, she said, her voice steady now. The hunters paused. For a moment the forest was silent again. The water rushed, the wind blew, but nothing else moved. Then one of them stepped forward. Its voice cut through the dark. Surrender. Lyra shook her head. Never. The hunters raised their weapons. Red lights charged, ready to fire. The pug barked furiously, his little body shaking with rage. He leapt from Lyra's arms and charged forward. His tiny form looked foolish against the towering machines, but his spirit was louder than their weapons. Warrior! Lyra cried. Her power flared brighter for a moment, sparked by his bravery. The hunters fired. Red bolts shot through the night. Lyra's hands moved on instinct. The silver light exploded outward, forming a shield of energy. The blast struck it and burst like fireworks, lighting the trees with silver and red. The sound echoed across the forest. The hunters hissed in anger, stepping back. Their voices rose, sharp and furious. Lyra dropped to her knees, weak from the effort. The shield flickered, fading. She held the pug close again, whispering, brave, but too small. We must run. She looked at the river again. It was her only choice. With one last breath, she stepped into the water. It was ice cold, pulling at her legs. The pug clung to her shoulder, whimpering but holding on. She pushed deeper, the current dragging her down. Behind her, the hunters fired again. Bolts struck the water, steam rising in thick clouds. The river roared, swallowing the sound of battle. She let the current take her. She floated, her arms weak, her body shaking. But she held the pug close, never letting him go. The river carried them away, twisting and turning through the dark forest. The hunters stood on the shore, their red eyes glowing. They did not follow into the water, but their voices carried through the night. We will find her. She cannot hide forever. The river rushed faster, carrying Lyra and the pug far from the danger. For now, the night was not over, but they had escaped the cage of the forest. For the first time since the crash, Lyra let herself breathe. She looked at the pug, wet and shivering but alive. We live together, she whispered. The pug barked once softly and curled against her chest. The darkness still hunted, but for this moment the river gave them hope. The river carried them far into the forest before finally slowing down. The current released them near a rocky shore, where the water whispered quietly against stone. Lyra dragged herself onto the bank, her clothes heavy, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dark. The pug climbed beside her, dripping wet, shaking his little body until water sprayed everywhere. They both lay there for a moment, breathing hard. The night air was cold and mist curled over the surface of the river. Lyra's eyes looked at the sky. No stars comforted her now, only darkness and clouds. The pug pressed close to her chest, his round body warm against her shivering frame. She stroked his back slowly. "Safe. For now," she whispered. Her voice sounded weak, tired but hopeful. The forest around them was quiet but not truly safe. She could still feel them, the hunters. They were out there. They always were. Their voices echoed faintly in her mind, even when far away. They were part of the darkness itself. Lyra closed her eyes. Memories returned, sharp and painful. She saw her world again, green skies and silver seas. Her people were gentle, living in harmony with light and nature. They had no weapons, no wars. They believed peace was eternal. But the hunters came without warning. Machines from the black void. They fell upon her people like storms of fire. The hunters destroyed everything. They burned the rivers, shattered the skies, and silenced the voices of her kin. She remembered her mother's hands pushing her into a silver pod, whispering, "Run, live, carry our light." Tears filled Lyra's eyes. She had run. She had lived. But she carried only fear now. And the hunters followed her even here, across stars, across worlds. The pug licked her cheek softly, pulling her back from her sorrow. She smiled faintly. "You understand?" she whispered. The dog wagged his tail and barked once. She sat up slowly, hugging her knees. The pug settled at her side. The fireflies danced in the grass around them, glowing like tiny stars. For a moment it felt almost peaceful again. Lyra began to speak, more to herself than to the pug. "My name is Lyra. I come from a world far away. My people had no fear. But we were not strong. The hunters, they are strong. They take everything. They want me because I carry the last piece." Her hand touched her chest, just above her heart. A faint silver glow pulsed there, hidden under her skin. The pug tilted his head, curious. "This light," she whispered. "It is what remains of my world. My mother gave it to me. If it dies, my people are gone forever. No memory, no hope, nothing." The pug whined softly, as if he understood the weight of her words. He pressed closer, resting his head on her lap. Lyra stroked his fur, her voice trembling. "They follow me because of this. They hunt the light. They fear it. But they also want it. If they take it, they will use it. They will burn more worlds. They will never stop." The forest rustled in the distance. Lyra froze, listening. For a moment she thought the hunters had found them again, but it was only the wind moving through the trees. Still, her heart did not calm. She whispered, "They always come back. Always." The pug barked quietly, then stood, alert. His nose sniffed the air, searching. Lyra followed his gaze. A strange glow flickered between the trees. Not red like the hunters, but golden, warm. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Lyra frowned. "Not them," she whispered. "Something else." She stood holding the pug. Her legs shook, but she followed the glow. Step by step, she moved deeper into the forest. The light grew brighter. Soon she entered a small clearing. At the center stood an old stone circle, half buried in moss. Strange carvings glowed faintly across its surface, the same silver color as her eyes. Lyra gasped. She touched the stone with her injured hand. The glow answered, rising stronger. The carvings shifted, forming symbols of her people. "This, my people's mark," she whispered. "How is it here? On this world?" The pug barked once, his tail wagging, though he did not understand. Lyra pressed her forehead against the stone. Memories flooded her mind. Images of her ancestors traveling the stars long ago, leaving traces on distant worlds. Her people had been here once. Earth had known their presence. Her silver eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not only sad. There was hope inside them, but the hope was short. From the darkness came the sound again. Mechanical growls. The red beams cut through the trees, chasing the silver glow. The hunters had found her again. Lyra stood tall now, holding the pug close. "No running," she whispered. "Not this time." The pug barked fiercely, ready to fight by her side. She placed her hand on the glowing stone. The light surged into her body, filling her veins with power. Her eyes blazed like twin stars. The hunters stepped into the clearing, their red lights burning. Lyra faced them, her voice steady. "This light is not yours." The pug growled at her feet, his spirit unbroken. The night trembled with what was about to come. The clearing glowed with silver light. The stone circle pulsed like a living heart, its ancient carving shining brighter as Lyra touched it. Her body trembled, but her silver eyes blazed with new strength. Beside her, the pug barked furiously, his little body standing against giants. The hunters stepped into the clearing, tall and sharp, their red beams slicing the night. 3 of them. Their armor hissed with steam, and their metal claws flexed as they raised their weapons. Their voices cut through the air, harsh and cold. "Target found, eliminate." Lyra lifted her chin. No, not this time. The hunters fired. Red bolts of energy screamed through the dark, aiming straight at her. But the stone answered. The carvings blazed and a silver shield burst outward, wrapping around Lyra and the pug. The blast struck the shield and scattered into sparks, lighting the clearing with fire and light. The pug barked louder, his voice echoing with the hum of the shield. His small growl felt bigger than his body, almost as if the stone gave him strength too. The hunters stepped back, surprised. They had not expected resistance this strong. But then they hissed again, raising their weapons for another strike. Lyra's hands glowed brighter. She stepped forward, her feet steady now, her fear melting into fire. "You will not take my light." She pushed her palms outward. A wave of silver energy crashed into the hunters, knocking 2 of them backward into the trees. The ground shook as they fell, but one remained standing, stronger than the others. It raised its claw and charged. Lyra gasped. The pug leapt at the machine, biting its leg with all his strength. Sparks flew, but the hunter swung its arm and threw the little dog aside. The pug yelped as he hit the ground. "Warrior!" Lyra cried. Her power flared hotter, her silver light blazing like a star. She rushed forward, slamming her glowing hands into the hunter's chest. The impact burst with light, throwing the machine into the stone circle. Its armor cracked, its red lights flickered. The other 2 hunters rose again, their voices sharp with anger. "Destroy, destroy." They fired together, bolts tearing through the clearing. Lyra twisted, dodging, but one blast grazed her shoulder. Pain burned through her and she fell to her knees. The pug dragged himself up, limping but determined. He barked, his voice fierce as if calling her to rise again. Lyra pressed her hand against the stone. "Help me, please," she whispered. The carvings glowed brighter, filling her veins with silver fire. Her eyes shone like suns. She stood once more, the hunters charged. She lifted her arms, crossing them in front of her chest. The light burst outward in a storm, filling the clearing with blinding silver. The trees shook, the earth cracked, and the hunters staggered under the force. The pug barked with her, their voices mixing, human, alien, animal, all standing against the machines. The hunters roared, their red lights burning stronger. They pushed against her power step by step. Their claws scraped the ground as they forced their way closer. Lyra gritted her teeth, sweat running down her face. Her legs shook. The light flickered. She was strong but not endless. The hunters were too many. One of them raised its claw high, ready to strike her down. The pug barked one last time and charged again, limping but fearless. He jumped at the hunter's face, scratching, biting, distracting it. The machine stumbled, trying to tear him off. Lyra saw her chance. With a scream, she released all the light inside her at once. The clearing exploded. Silver fire swept across the circle, ripping through the hunters. Their red lights shattered, their armor cracked and melted. The machines screamed in static, their voices breaking apart as the energy tore them down. When the light faded, silence filled the forest. Smoke rose from the broken machines. Their bodies lay twisted, sparks flying. The red glow in their eyes was gone. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling, her chest burning where the light had left her. Her silver eyes dimmed, almost dark. She gasped for air, barely able to move. The pug crawled to her side. His fur singed, his leg hurt, but his tail wagged weakly. He licked her face, and she smiled faintly through her exhaustion. Warrior, brave. Always, she looked at the broken hunters. She knew this was not the end. More would come. The hunters never stopped. But tonight she had survived. Tonight she had protected the light. She pulled the pug into her arms, holding him close. "We fight together. We live together," she whispered. The wind blew through the clearing, carrying away the smoke. The stone circle dimmed again, its carvings fading into silence. The power was gone for now. Above, the clouds parted. For the first time that night, a few stars appeared in the sky. Lyra looked up at them with tired eyes. Hope flickered in her heart, small but real. But far away, beyond the stars, she could feel it. More hunters. More shadows. Watching. Waiting. The battle was won, but the war was not over. The forest was silent after the storm of light. Smoke curled from the broken hunters, their red eyes dim forever. The stone circle no longer glowed. Its power had fallen quiet, as if it had given everything it could. Lyra knelt in the clearing, her body weak, her silver eyes fading to a softer glow. She held the pug close against her chest. His small body trembled, but his spirit remained fierce. His tail wagged weakly, his round eyes watching her with loyalty. The night felt heavy, but it was not endless. Slowly, the sky began to change. A faint line of gold spread along the horizon. Dawn was coming. Lyra lifted her head and watched the first light of day touch the trees. For the first time since her crash, she felt the warmth of this world's sun. It was different from her home's green skies, but it carried the same promise. Life, hope, renewal. The pug barked once, a soft sound, as if telling her, "You made it through the night." She smiled faintly. Yes, we live, but her smile faded quickly. Her body ached. Her power was gone, burned out in the battle, and she knew the truth. More hunters would come. They always came. The 3 she destroyed were only scouts, not the army. She looked down at the pug, her voice soft but heavy with fear. Day is safe, but night will return. They never stop. The pug tilted his head, listening. His small body leaned into her side, showing her she was not alone. The forest woke around them. Birds began to sing. The mist rose from the ground, curling in the golden light of dawn. The world looked peaceful again, almost like nothing had happened. But the broken machines in the clearing told another story, one of war and danger. Lyra stood slowly, her legs weak. She pressed her hand to the stone one last time. It gave no answer now, but deep in her chest, her light still pulsed, faint but alive. Her mother's gift remained, she whispered. I must protect it. Until the end, she turned toward the pug. And you, my warrior, you protect me. The pug barked proudly, even though he was small and hurt. His courage made her heart stronger. Together they left the clearing, moving through the forest as the sun climbed higher. The danger of night was gone, but the memory of it lingered in every shadow. Hours passed. Lyra followed the river until they reached the edge of the forest. Ahead lay the quiet town, its rooftops shining in the morning sun. Smoke rose from chimneys. People walked the streets unaware of what had happened in the dark. Lyra stood at the tree line watching them. Her eyes filled with questions. Could she trust them? Could she live among them without drawing the hunters again? Or would her presence bring only danger to their peaceful lives? The pug barked once and wagged his tail. He trotted toward the town, looking back at her as if saying, Come with me. You belong here now, but Lyra shook her head. No, not yet. Her voice was soft, filled with sorrow. If they find me here, they will burn this place too. Her heart ached. She wanted safety. She wanted home. But she could not risk the lives of innocent people. The hunters hunted her, not them. She looked down at the pug. You belong here. With your humans, safe. The pug barked loudly, refusing her words. He ran back to her, pressing against her legs. His eyes said it clearly. Where you go, I go. Tears filled her silver eyes. She knelt, hugging him tightly. You choose me, even in fear. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the ground. Lyra wiped her tears and stood again. She looked at the sky and her breath caught in her throat. Far above, the blue morning sky was broken by faint red lights. Not stars. Ships. They had come. The hunter's fleet hovered just beyond the clouds, their shadows moving like scars across the sun. Lyra's heart sank. She had known they would return, but not so soon. She held the pug close, whispering, It begins again. The pug barked at the sky, his small voice fierce, as if challenging the ships above. Lyra's eyes hardened. She had a choice. She could run again, keep hiding, keep fleeing across worlds, or she could stand here on this small blue planet and fight. not only for herself but for the people who did not yet know the danger coming. She looked at the town in the distance, at the humans walking peacefully under the rising sun. She thought of her own people gone forever, and she made her decision. No more running, she whispered. This world, I protect it. This light, I share it. She held the pug high, his paws pointing at the sky. His bark echoed across the fields. The dawn was no longer just a sunrise. It was a warning, a promise, a beginning. The hunters were coming, and this time Lyra would not hide.